Shalom, Mishpaka. All praises to the Most High Abba Yahuwah. My name is Anur Yahudim, founding sovereign of the Nation of Yashar'el, descendant of David of the tribe of Yehuda. And I am speaking to you today by authority of Abba Yahuwah, the Most High, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I am speaking to the citizens of the Nation of Yashar'el wherever you are. I am speaking to the remnant, scattered to the four corners of the earth, as Yahuwah said you would be. To those whose blood speaks. I am speaking to the so-called African Americans, the descendants of men, women, and children who were taken into ships and sold into bondage in fulfillment of Devarim 28:68. I am speaking to the Afro-Caribbean in Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Haiti, and every island where the ships landed, the Afro and Latinos in Brazil, Colombia, Honduras, and Belize, the Afro-Mexicans of the Costa Chica, the Garifuna of Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, Afro-Indigenous people carrying both bloodlines, the Maroon communities, the Accompong and Moortown of Jamaica, the Saramaka and Inuka of Suriname, the Qualimbo, descendants of Brazil who built sovereign nations in exile 300 years before we broke ground, the Seminole free men and Black Seminoles of Oklahoma and Texas. I am speaking to the Limba of Zimbabwe and South Africa who carry the priestly DNA in their veins, confirmed by science, preserved by tradition, denied by no one. The Igbo of Nigeria, whose 8-day circumcision and clan structures mirror the Torah. The Ashanti of the Sewi of Ghana, who kept Israelite customs before any missionary arrived. The Tutsi of Rwanda and Burundi, whose oral tradition traced to Yashar'el. The Beta Yashar'el of Ethiopia, who preserved Torah for 3,000 years without a Talmud, without a rabbi, and without permission. I am speaking to the Pashtun of Afghanistan and Pakistan, 50 million people who circumcised on the 8th day, who observe Shabbat, whose tribal names echo the tribes of Yashar'el. The sons of Joseph, the children of Ephraim, who have never been told that the customs written on their bodies are the Torah. I am speaking to the Karim, people of Myanmar, who carried traditions of stone tablets, a lost sacred book, and a promise that one day that book would return. They do not call themselves Israelites, but their story is our story, and the book is returning. I am speaking to the indigenous peoples of America who were here before Columbus, who carry the blood of the tribes that crossed the waters long before the slave ships. I am speaking to the Aboriginal peoples of Australia and the Maori. I am speaking to the Rastafari of Jamaica, who always knew they were Israelites, through the Ethiopian Solomonic line, and who never needed a rabbi to tell them what their spirit already confirmed. I'm speaking to the Black British, the Afro-French, the Afro-Dutch, and every descendant of Jacob living in the nations of their captors. To those whose traditions testify, I am speaking to the Beni Manashe of Manipur and the Mizoram in northeastern India, who claim descended from the tribe of Manasseh and whose songs and practices have preserved that claim across millennia. I am speaking to the Beni Yashar'el of Maharashtra, who kept Shabbat and circumcision in isolation for over 2,000 years. I'm speaking to the Cochin community of Kerala. I'm speaking to the Kafin community in China, who maintained Hebrew traditions throughout thousands of years. Your traditions testify that the Torah touched your ancestors, whether by blood or by the proximity of your forefathers to the covenant people. The practices you preserved are not accidents. They are not coincidences. Every branch, every root, every crossing. And if he is calling you through this address, that call is your answer. To those who kept the Torah in secret, I am speaking to the Sephardic Anusim, the crypto-Jews who hid Torah observance for 500 years under the Inquisition in Portugal, where the Belmonte community kept the flame alive in basements and behind locked doors. In Spain, in southern Italy, in Greece, in Turkey, across North Africa, and in northern Mexico, in Monterrey and Saltillo, where families lit candles on Friday night knowing it could cost their lives. You kept the Torah alive when the world tried to kill it. Whether you carry the blood of Jacob or whether your ancestors walked so closely with the covenant people, the flame you preserved in secret is holy. And the nation of Yashar'el honors the keepers of the flame. To every soul in every category by blood, by tradition, by secret practice, who is hearing this and feeling something move inside of them, you are being called. You are being called. And Yahuwah, Abba Yahuwah, does not call by accident. I am speaking to the 123 nations that stood for justice 5 days ago at the United Nations. And I am speaking to the world, because what I'm about to say concerns every nation on this earth. 5 days ago, on March 25th, 2026, the United Nations General Assembly voted on Resolution A80L48, Ghana's resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. 123 nations voted yes. 3 nations voted no. The United States, Israel, Argentina. 52 nations said nothing. Every major European nation that ran the slave trade, England, France, Portugal, Belgium, Denmark, abstained. They refused to stand. They refused to sit. They stood on the other side. And our people are divided. Some are celebrating, some are angry, some are saying Ghana is trying to steal our reparations. Some are saying the resolution doesn't matter because it's non-binding. Some don't know what to think. I understand all of it, every bit of it. And I came here today to give you something none of those responses can give you. I came here to give you clarity. Before I tell you what happened to me 3 nights ago, I need to tell you what happened a month ago, because the world doesn't know this, but the nations do. Between February 19th and February 23rd, 2026, the Nation of Yashar'el issued 195 royal decrees to every recognized nation on earth. Every nation on earth. 195 sovereign decrees sealed by my hand, authorized by Abba Yahuwah, delivered to the government of the world. Delivered to the governments of the world. Among those 195, 29 were demand decrees of restitution. These were not petitions. They were not requests. They were sovereign demands addressed personally to kings, presidents, and prime ministers, demanding acknowledgement, apology, the return of stolen artifacts, and Israel received a decree. Not because they are covenant people. They are not. The modern state of Israel is populated by Ashkenazi Europeans who adopted the name of Yashar'el, Israel, but do not carry the bloodline of Jacob. The decree called for the state to acknowledge the true 13 tribes, including the millions scattered through the slave trade, and to stop claiming an identity that was never theirs. That was February, 1 full month before the UN voted. The Nation of Yashar'el did not react to the UN vote. The nation preceded it. The demands were already in their hands. And then the UN vote showed the world publicly, on the record, exactly where each nation stood. The demand decrees were the private warning. The UN vote was the public exposure. And what I am about to share with you is the prophetic consequences. 2 nights ago, after the UN vote, in the early hours of Friday, March 27, 2026, I was asleep. I had not set an alarm. I was not restless. I was at peace. And at 1 o'clock that early morning, I was awakened. I didn't know why I was awake. I got up and walked to the bathroom. And as I sat there, and I'm going to tell you exactly where I was because Abba Yahuwah does not care about your dignity when he has something to say. I was sitting on the toilet. And on that toilet, at 1 in the morning, I started talking to Abba Yahuwah. I said, Abba, I've been watching my people argue about this UN vote. I've been watching the anger, the confusion, the suspicion. I want to say something. Can I say something? And if I can, what should I say? And Abba spoke. He told me to bless. He said, Baruch, the 123 nations that voted yes, and for those who voted no or abstained, curse. Yes, I said curse. I did not plan this. I did not research this. I did not consult with anyone. I was sitting on a toilet at 1 o'clock in the morning, and Abba Yahuwah gave me the word. This is how he works. He does not wait for the throne room. He spoke to Moshe from a burning bush in the wilderness. He spoke to Gideon while he was hiding in a winepress. He spoke to Shemuel when he was a boy lying on the floor. And he spoke to me on a toilet at 1 a.m. in the morning. Because Abba Yahuwah does not meet his servants where they are elevated. He meets them where they are most human, so that no one can say the vessel was worthy when the word came. I left the bathroom and went to my computer, and I pulled up the list of every country that voted, and I began to build what Abba had commanded, a formal declaration of blessing over the 123 nations and grounded in Torah, grounded in the covenant promise of Bereshit 12:3. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you, I will curse. And as the declaration began to take shape, as I read the preamble, as I saw the names of the nations being listed, as I read the words in the memory of the 12.5 million men, women and children who were stolen, I began to cry. I cried. I cried from 1:07 a.m. to 1:31 a.m. 24 minutes. 24 minutes I cried. This was not sadness. This was not frustration. This was not self-pity. It was my blood screaming. My blood was literally screaming. I cried so hard I couldn't stop. It was as if every ancestor, every one of the 12.5 million who were stolen, every one of the 2 million who died on the ships, every one who was beaten in the fields and sold on the auction blocks and hanged from the trees and separated from their children was crying through me. They cannot cry anymore. They cannot cry anymore. Their bodies are in the ground. Their bones are on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. But their blood still speaks. The Torah says so. Bereshit 4:10, the voice of your brother's blood cries unto me from the ground. On this night, it cried through me. I soaked 3 white paper towels. 3. Those paper towels filled with tears and mucus. 3 towels, 3 nations voted no. The tears of 12.5 million ancestors covered the exact number of the refusal, the color of righteousness. It's white. Those 3 towels are the testimony. I cried for 24 minutes. I didn't time it. I did not plan it, but 24 is the number of the priestly order of David, established to serve before Yahuwah continuously. For 24 minutes, without planning it, without counting, I served as a priest in my own home, soaked in tears of a people who have waited 400 years for someone to stand before the nations and say, this was a crime, and there must be justice. When I picked myself up, wrung out, emptied, holding 3 soaked white towels, 3, the Ruach HaKodesh spoke to me. He said, look at the time. I looked at the clock. It was 1:30 a.m. Yirmiyahu chapter 31, verse 1. At the same time, says Abba Yahuwah, will I be the Elohim of all the families of Yashar'el, and they shall be my people. All the families, every tribe, every scattered remnant, every descendant who was taken in ships and sold into bondage, every descendant who was driven across borders by exile, by colonization, by war, every descendant who was absorbed into indigenous populations and forgot their origin, every soul in Americas, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, and the Pacific Islands, who carries the blood of Jacob and does not yet know their name. Abba Yahuwah says, I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. The Ruach HaKodesh sealed the night with the verse that holds this entire nation together. And in the same chapter, Yirmiyahu 31, verses 15 through 17, the prophet records this. A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel, weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. Thus says Abba Yahuwah, refrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded, says Abba Yahuwah, and they shall come again from the land of the enemy. Rachel weeping for her children. I was weeping for mine. And Yahuwah said the same thing to me that he said to Rachel. Stop crying. Your work will be rewarded. They are all coming back. They are all coming back from the land of the enemy to their own border, to Montana, to the capital city, to the Mishkan. What came out of that night is a document. I call it the BARUK Declaration. BARUK means blessing in Hebrew. It is being published today in full by Adspira Publishing. But I want to tell you what it says, because this is not a document for the shelf, all right? This is a decree for the nation. The Torah teaches in Bereshit 12:3 that Yahuwah established an eternal mechanism when he spoke to Abraham. I will bless those who bless you, and him who treats you lightly I will curse. That word, treats you lightly, the Hebrew is imkalika. It does not mean only those who attack you. It means those who diminish you, those who treat your suffering as insignificant, those who look at 400 years of slavery and shrug. 400 years of slavery and shrug. Those who abstain. When 52 nations looked at this resolution and chose to say nothing, they did not achieve neutrality. They achieved kalal. They treated lightly. And the covenant mechanism covers it. The prophet Obadiah puts it plainly, speaking to Edom, the nation that watched while Yashar'el was carried away captive. He says, in the day that you stood on the other side, even you were as one of them. Obadiah 1:11. The bystander is counted with the perpetrator. So the BARUK Declaration does something very specific. It does not curse. We do not need to curse. Bereshit 12:3 handles that without our assistance. What the declaration does is bless. It speaks a sevenfold prophetic blessing, 7 Baruks, over the 123 nations that voted yes. The blessing of recognition, the blessing of peace, the blessing of provision, the blessing of healing, the blessing of truth, the blessing of protection, the blessing of legacy. Each blessing is grounded in Torah. Each is spoken in the name of Abba Yahuwah. Each is irrevocable. And here is the principle that governs the entire declaration. Light does not fight darkness. It simply shines. And where the light shines, the darkness is exposed without a word being spoken. The darkness is exposed. We do not need to fight nations that said no. We bless nations that said yes. And the contrast does the work. The BARUK that falls on 123 nations casts a shadow on the 55 that are left outside. That shadow is not a curse we spoke. It is a blessing they refused. The stain is self-inflicted. The shadow is self-applied. Every nation chose its own position by its own vote. Not anger. No anger here. No anger at all. Let the record note the three who voted no. The United States of America, the nation that enslaved more Africans than any other Western Hemisphere power. The nation whose capital was built by enslaved hands. The nation that wrote all men are created equal, while holding 4 million people in chains. The nation that paid reparations to Japanese Americans for internment, that paid reparations to Native American tribes, that paid the slave owners after the Civil War, but refuses to pay the people who are owed the most. The United States of America voted no. Israel. And I need to be clear about who I mean when I say Israel. The modern state of Israel is not the covenant people. It is populated predominantly by Ashkenazi Europeans who adopted the name Yashar'el, but do not carry the bloodline of Jacob. They are not one of the 13 tribes. They are an outside people wearing a covenant name that was never theirs. That state receives $3.8 million a year from the United States, leveraging the moral weight of a covenant history it did not live. And when the actual covenant people's suffering was placed on the floor of the United Nations, Israel voted no. We sent them a demand decree calling them to release the identity they hold captive, to acknowledge the true 13 tribes, and to stop claiming a name they did not inherit. They refused. Israel functions today as the modern-day Mizraim, not because it refused to share, but because it's holding a covenant identity hostage. Yashar'el does not know who it is, the true Yashar'el. Israel voted no. Argentina aligned its vote with the refusal of the perpetrators. And the 52 who abstained, England, France, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, Denmark, Canada, Australia, Japan. Every nation that ran the slave trade or profited from the empire, they knew the crime was real. They said so in their statements. And then they refused to vote yes. Obadiah 1:15 answers them. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. Your reward shall return upon your own head. Your reward shall return upon your own head. But I must also address something remarkable. Among the 123 nations that voted yes, 9 of them were nations that had already received our demand decrees of restitution. They owe us a debt, and they voted to recognize the crime. Ghana, which led the entire resolution, knowing its own kingdom sold the captives. Egypt, the original house of bondage. Iran, Jordan, Turkey, ancient offenders. Nigeria, Angola, who sold brethren. Russia, Ethiopia. The Torah has a word for this. The demand decrees issued to all 29 nations carry a debt that is compounded plus tenfolds. That is the weight of the offense, measured across centuries, multiplied by the scale of what was taken: lives, land, labor, language, identity, and covenant relationship with Yahuwah. Tenfolds is not a negotiating position. It is a Torah-calculated consequence for the magnitude of the crime. But Vayikra 5:24 introduces a provision. When a debtor confesses voluntarily before they are compelled, before they are dragged to the Beit Din, the Torah reduces the penalty, not eliminates it, reduces it. The acknowledgement opens the door to restoration at a lesser weight. These 9 nations, by voting yes, have begun that process. They have not paid, but they have stood. And standing voluntarily before the world changes the posture of the reckoning. The remaining 19 nations that received demand decrees and did not vote yes, that voted no or abstained or were not present, their debt remains at the full compounded weight, tenfolds, unreduced, because they were given the opportunity to acknowledge and they refused. So these 9 nations received the Baruk because they blessed, and they remain under the demand decree because they owe. Both are true. The blessing does not cancel the debt, but it changes the posture. A debt who stands voluntarily is in a different position than a debtor who hides. Now, I'm going to step in a little closer because I'm speaking specifically to you. Now, I want to speak directly to my people, you guys that are watching, right? I know who you are because I'm that guy. I'm that guy. I'm still that guy. I was that guy and I'm still that guy. To those who blood speaks, you are the so-called African American. You are the Afro-Caribbean in Kingston and Port-au-Prince and Bridgetown. You are the Afro-Latino in Salvador de Bahia and Cartagena and Puerto Sola. You are the Mexican and the Costa Chica and the Garifuna in Livingston, the Dangara, the Maroon, the Kalimbo, descendant of Palmares, the Saramaka. You are the Seminole freedmen in Oklahoma. You are the Limba of Zimbabwe who carry the priestly gene. You are the Igbo of southern Nigeria. You are the Ashanti. You are the Tutsi of Rwanda and Burundi. You are the Beta Yashar'el of Gondar. You are the Pashtun elder in Kandahar, who circumcises his sons on the 8th day and has never been told why his customs match the Torah. You are the Karen of Myanmar, who have been waiting for the lost book to return. You are the Aboriginal of Australia. You are the Maori. You are the Rastafari in Trenchtown, who always knew. You are the Black Brit, the Afro-French, the Afro-Dutch. You are the indigenous peoples of the Americas who were here before the ships. That's right, I said it, here before the ships. To those whose traditions testify, you are the Benai Manasseh of Manipur, whose songs carry the memory of Manasseh. You are the Bene Israel of Mumbai. You are the Cochin Jew of Kochi. You are the Kefan descendant in China, whose family kept the traditions for 1,000 years. Your practices are not coincidences. And if something in you is responding to this address, that response is the testimony. To those who kept the flame, you are the crypto Jew of the Monterey, who lit candles on Friday night in secret for 500 years because the Inquisition told you it would cost your life. You are the Anusim of Belmont, Portugal, who never stopped. You are every family across Spain, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and North Africa, who whispered Hebrew prayers behind closed doors and taught their children to remember without telling them what they were remembering. The Torah you kept alive in secret. It is holy. The Nation of Yashar'el honors the keepers of the flame. To all of you, by blood, by tradition, by secret flames, you are the descendant of a people who were dispersed to the four corners of the earth by ships, by exile, by empire, by inquisition, by colonization, by war. Your blood remembers what your mind forgot. The world calls you a minority. The census calls you a category. The politician calls you a voting bloc. The corporation call you a market segment. Abba Yahuwah calls you Yashar'el, the nation of Yashar'el. Devarim 28, verse 68, written over 3,000 years ago, Yahuwah said, I will bring you into Mitzrayim again with ships, and you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no men shall buy you. No men shall buy you. Ships, sold, bondmen and bondwomen, no men shall buy you. Meaning, no ransom would be paid for your freedom. That is not a description of Africans. That is a description of a specific covenant people under a specific covenant consequence. That is us. That is you. The United Nations just confirmed what happened to us. 123 nations agreed. It is the gravest crime against humanity. It is the gravest crime against humanity. But the UN cannot tell you who you are. Only Abba Yahuwah can do that. Only Abba Yahuwah can do that. And he already did 3,400 years ago. I know some of you are angry at Ghana. I understand. African kingdoms sold our ancestors to the slave ships. That is a documented fact. And that wound is real. But hear me for a second, okay? Your anger at Ghana is valid, but it is also a distraction. Because while you are arguing with Ghana about who gets the check, the United States, the nation that actually enslaved you, that actually built its wealth on your back, that actually owes the debt, just voted no. The U.S. said it does not recognize a legal right to reparations. That is the same nation that paid reparations to Japanese Americans, that paid reparations to Native tribes, that paid the slave owners after abolition. It has paid reparations before. It just refuses to pay you. So I have a question, and I ask it with love because I am your brother. If the resolution is non-binding, and it is, if the United States has already said no, and it has, if the nations that owe you the most have no intention of paying, and they don't, what is your plan? What is your plan? What is your plan? Here is mine. The Nation of Yashar'el is building a sovereign capital city on 4 million acres in Montana. Groundbreaking in March 1st, 2027. The Mishkan, the dwelling place of Abba Yahuwah, will be consecrated at Sukkot 2028. We are building covenant schools that teach Torah and Hebrew, not the slave master's curriculum. We are building covenant clinics that heal with plants Yahuwah created, not the pharmaceutical industry that profits from our sickness. We are building a covenant. We are building a covenant economy with our own currency, not the dependent on the banking system that financed the slave trade. We are building a nation, not a program, not a movement, not a hashtag, an actual nation with a capital city, Yerushalayim, a nation. That is a reparation. What do you think? Not a check from a government that just told you no, not a resolution that carries no legal weight, not a fund that doesn't exist. A nation built by the hand of Abba Yahuwah, populated by the remnant who remember who they are. And if you don't believe me, I say this: have a little faith. Have a little faith in Abba Yahuwah. Even if that faith is as small as a grain of mustard seed, have a little faith. I do. To the 123 nations that voted yes, the Nation of Yashar'el sees you. The BARUK Declaration names you, every one of you, by name, in your own language, and in Hebrew. The sevenfold blessing of Abba Yahuwah has been spoken over you. It is irrevocable. May your borders be secure. May your harvest be plentiful. May truth prevail in your courts and peace reign in your streets. You stood for memory of our stolen ancestors and the covenant promise of Bereshith 12:3. Bereshith 12:3 now covers you. To the 3 who voted no and the 52 who abstained, the BARUK does not fall upon you, not because we cursed you. We did not. But because you chose to stand outside the blessing. The shadow you sit in is one you cast upon yourselves. The stain is not spoken, it is recorded, and it can only be removed by repentance, by standing at a future hour where you refuse to stand on March 25th, 2026. I want to close by speaking to one person, not the nations, not the governments, not the media, one person. You're sitting somewhere right now, on your couch, on a bus, on your lunch break, lying in bed at 2 in the morning because you can't sleep. And you have been listening to this, and something inside you is moving. You don't know what it is. You might call it chills. You might call it that feeling in your chest. You might be crying, and you don't know why, like I did for 24 minutes. I know what it is, though. I know what it is. That is the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. That is the set-apart spirit of Abba Yahuwah. That is the same voice that called Abraham out of Ur. That the same voice that spoke to Moshe from the burning bush. The same voice that woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning and told me to bless 123 nations. That voice is calling you. It is saying what it has always said from Bereshith to this moment. Come out. Come home. Be restored. The gathering is real. The nation is real. The capital is real. The Mishkan is real. Citizen enrollment is open right now at nationofyashar'el.org. The BARUK Declaration, the full document with every nation named, every blessing spoken, every scripture cited, is available for free download today. The 70 Essentials Preparedness Guide, because if you're coming home, you need to be ready, is available at nationofyashar'el.org. I started this address with a question that Abba Yahuwah asked me on a toilet at 1 o'clock in the morning. He didn't ask me to curse the nations. He didn't ask me to fight. He said, bless. Although curse was a part of the scripture. But the nation, they curse themselves by not blessing. And I end with a verse he pointed to me at 1 o'clock a.m. when the tears were done and the assignment was sealed. At the same time, says Abba Yahuwah, will I be the Elohim of all the families of Yashar'el, and they shall be my people. All the families, including yours. Don't be angry. Don't be afraid. Do not be confused. Be clear. Be covenant. Be gathered. This is Anur Yahudim, the sovereign of the nation of Yashar'el, by authority of Abba Yahuwah. Come home. We're waiting for you.